July 24th, 1914. The world is on the edge of war. The Great War, World War I. At the Gare de l'Est in Paris, the Orient Express is preparing for departure. Little does anyone know, this will be its last trip to Constantinople for some years. Though few citizens expect a war, the air seethes with tension. The gendarmes are out in greater numbers than usual. A man watches anxiously from the train, waiting for someone who never arrives. The Orient Express departs without incident. Shortly after leaving the station, a motorbike pulls up alongside and a man jumps aboard. His red-headed deliverer waves him goodbye and we're slapped into the shoes of Robert Cath, a 29-year-old American doctor, ticketless aboard this exclusive railway. All that's in his pockets are a news clipping about an Irish police officer killed in Dublin a few nights ago, and details of a fugitive American doctor wanted for questioning in connection to the incident. Along with the news article is a telegram from one Tyler Whitney telling Robert to catch the Orient Express that departs from Paris on July 24th at 7 p.m. sharp. Since the trains just left the station, the conductors have yet to familiarize themselves with all of the passengers' faces, and Robert Cath learns that Tyler Whitney's compartment is the first in the green sleeping car. Cath gets a nasty surprise when he opens the door, though. His friend dead on the floor in a pool of blood, and a train full of passengers who have all just become suspects. We see now that Tyler was the man anxiously surveying the station, waiting for Cath to board the train. Since Cath's own identity is questionable, he decides to take on Tyler's, to figure out what kind of scheme his friend was wrapped up in and uncover his killer. The clock is ticking though. Paris to Constantinople, 68 hours, and a whole heap of bad ends that can happen along the way. Welcome to Murder on the Rotoscoped Express. The Last Express is a point-and-click adventure game developed by Smoking Car Productions. It was released on April 16, 1997 on DOS, Windows, and Mac. The product of almost 4 years of development, The Last Express was a critical darling at the time, earning rave reviews from Computer Gaming World, Computer Games Magazine, and PC Gamer in the US. Their UK counterpart weren't quite as enthusiastic, but, can't win them all. And I'm betting you can guess where this story is headed next. While earning much praise from reviewers, The Last Express was a flop, selling nowhere near enough copies to make up its lavish production costs of an estimated $5 to $6 million US. Huge money for a point-and-click adventure in 1997. As seems to be the case with the adventure games I cover on this channel, most of them were too ambitious, cost their developers too much time and money, and released too late to capitalize on the commercial peak of the genre. Its developer, Smoking Car Productions, shut its doors almost immediately after the game's release, and its publisher, Broderbund, was bought out by The Learning Company a year later. The Learning Company would go on to take a hatchet to Broderbund's staff and production line, so The Last Express was out of print less than a year after its release. It was doomed to obscurity right out of the gate, but damn if it isn't an interesting game. Ambitious doesn't even begin to describe it. Drawing on extensive research of the years leading up to World War I, bursting with attention to detail, featuring live-action actors, rotoscoped animation, a diverse, multilingual cast, real-time event mechanics, multiple paths and endings, and just excellent characters and story, The Last Express is an impressively immersive experience. It was created by Jordan Mechner, a designer and programmer whose name should be household to anyone interested in the history of the medium. The man almost single-handedly invented the idea of cinematic storytelling in video games. To get to the bottom of that, and to show you the path Mechner took that led to the creation of The Last Express, we need to go all the way back to 1984, to the days of Apple II game development, and to Jordan Mechner's first published game, Karateka, or Karateka, or Karateka, however you want to pronounce it. Jordan Mechner doesn't care.
I called it Karateka, but I've since found out that pretty much everybody pronounced it differently. So however you pronounce it is fine. Don't feel bad. It's all good.
On the surface, Karateka has a deceptively simple objective. Fight through increasingly difficult opponents in one-on-one martial arts combat to reach Princess Mariko, who's being kept prisoner inside the castle of the evil Akuma. But it's not the story itself that makes this game so special. It's the presentation, the atmosphere, the movement, and the music that all add up to lay the foundation of modern cinematic game design. Karateka is one of the first games to feature environmental storytelling to create tension and a sense of pacing. There are cutscenes featuring musical themes, a completely new and innovative idea. Not just the cutscenes, but actually using music to enhance the storytelling. Through his interest in film, he knew how important music was for creating an emotional connection. Before Karateka, not many games used their soundtracks in such a way. There were games with background music, sure, but Mechner was aiming for a more cinematic approach. Karateka's soundtrack was composed by Jordan Mechner's father, Francis. Francis Mechner wrote the songs on piano, and Jordan painstakingly programmed each note into the game to play at specific moments. And there's a big reason this was such an amazing feat. The Apple II had no sound card. The machine really just made beeping noises, so values needed to be adjusted in code to make different pitches and durations to create something that resembled music. It's crazy to think about. This was the first time composed music was put into a game to add dramatic weight to what was happening on screen. Maybe there are some other examples from around the same time, but nothing was done with such artistic flair as Karateka. The Apple II was so limited in its processing power that it couldn't handle sound and animation at the same time. So the musical cues are set in between animations, yet this technical limitation actually lends some dramatic weight to the action on screen. I just can't get over how masterfully it's all done. This is the beginning of narrative in games as we know it. In addition to the intro cinematics, there are in-game cutscenes, showing Akuma sending increasingly more powerful enemies your way in an attempt to stop you. So you get this sense of anticipation at what's coming next. Cutaways from gameplay also show enemies running toward you, creating tension and adding a layer of strategy. When you see a foe running, do you keep moving forward, possibly running face first into an attack? Or do you stop and assume your fighting stance, ready yourself for the upcoming battle? It's amazing how much this little design element affects the experience of just moving left to right and fighting dudes. And let me remind you, this is an action game from 1984. Karateka features other technical marvels, such as its smooth rotoscoped animation, which Mechner accomplished by filming his father, mother, and their karate instructor running and performing different moves. He then took the film and traced the frames, a technique that was suggested by his father Francis, and Jordan figured out the mechanics of by reading a book on how Disney animators worked on their early films, like Snow White and Pinocchio. Karateka ramps up its complexity in later levels, introducing not only stronger enemies but traps, and that goddamn bird. You better be ready when you hear that squawk or you're going down. Karateka also features a good and bad ending, depending on how the player enters the last room of the game. After defeating the final boss, Akuma, if you enter the princess's chamber in your fighting stance and move slowly toward her, she'll mistake you for an enemy and kill you in one hit. If you stand and run toward her, she'll embrace the hero, and the game will end with a kiss. Karateka is brilliant, and absolutely worth playing today. The best way to do so is through Digital Eclipse's release titled The Making of Karateka. It's not only a collection of different ports of the game and a modern remake by them, but also an interactive documentary. There are interviews with Mechner and his father, with other game devs and designers. You can read through design documents and journal entries kept by Mechner while he was creating the game. There are even prototypes of earlier versions that you can play, and earlier games that Mechner tried to make during his college days that are preserved and playable here. Digital Eclipse's remake of Mechner's Death Bounce, a never even finished game that he worked on for years before Karateka, is actually really good. It's insane that they included this. Honestly though, my favorite part of this entire thing are the interviews with Jordan and his father. His dad was just so into what he was doing and so supportive of his son's passions. It's heartwarming to watch.
I kind of expected that computer games would become important, but that wasn't influencing me in how I related to you. Yeah. And I wasn't thinking of it as a business thing. I just thought of it as one of your passions that should be developed to the full, pursued to its logical conclusion.
So you were interested in these computer games just because I was interested in them?
Yeah, Oh, entirely. I mean, I had no interest in them at that time. I never played a computer game. Didn't expect that I would ever.
Seriously, even if you're not interested in Karateka, if you have any interest in games preservation, you need to go to Steam or GOG or the Microsoft, PlayStation, or Nintendo stores and buy The Making of Karateka right now. Digital Eclipse needs to know that this kind of preservation and documentation on classic games is worthwhile. Mechner toyed with the idea of creating a Karateka 2 that would expand greatly on the gameplay of the original. Design documents reveal that the game would have had more platform and adventure elements, and would have featured the princess as a playable character. Work on Karateka 2 never got beyond the planning stages though. Mechner's focus shifted to a new idea, based on his interest in the story collection The Arabian Nights, as well as films like Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Adventures of Robin Hood. This idea is what would become Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia took the platformer elements from Karateka 2's concept work and ran with them. It also expanded the rotoscoped animation technique and the focus on environmental storytelling that Jordan Mechner's first game pioneered. If Karateka's success allowed Mechner to focus on game design full-time, Prince of Persia's turned him into a superstar. Though, not right away. Prince of Persia actually sold rather poorly when it was first released on the Apple II in October of 1989. It wasn't until the game's Japanese and European releases the following year that it became a success. After that, it was ported to numerous consoles, including but not limited to the NES, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, Master System, Genesis, Sega CD, Game Gear, TurboGrafx-16, FM Towns, and many others. For my money, the Super Nintendo port is the best of the bunch. Great upgrade to the visuals and music while keeping the feel of the original. It also expands certain areas and has extra content that adds to the experience. The box art for the Japanese Super Famicom release is incredible too. Though there's still a lot of charm to the Apple II original. That character animation is so smooth. The controls and feel of the game take a bit of getting used to if you've never played it before. Everything is very deliberate. Precise inputs are important, and mastering all of your movement options is critical to your survival, as is figuring out its sword fighting mechanics. Tying into the rotoscoped animation, the movement leans more on realism. Jumping gaps without a running start only gives you a short hop. When you run and jump, you need to factor in that the prince needs to take another step before jumping. You need to turn around and face away from ledges before being able to climb down them. There are many more nuances to its movement and controls. Prince of Persia is a much more advanced game than Karateka, packed with traps, secrets, and even more of an emphasis on atmosphere and environmental storytelling. It's a fantastic game. There's a reason the franchise has endured for so long. In 1993, Mechner would go on to develop a follow-up to Prince of Persia, a direct sequel that actually saw a release this time. Prince of Persia 2, The Shadow and the Flame was designed for MS-DOS machines, Mechner's first game not written for the Apple II. The sequel had a wider variety of locations and enemies, more complex level design, and improved graphics and sound. It also features a greater emphasis on combat. The first Prince of Persia had combat. In fact, one of your first tasks in the original is to collect a sword from the deepest area of the dungeon you've been thrown into, so you can defeat a guard to escape. But whereas the first game would only ever face you off against one opponent at a time, Prince of Persia 2 sometimes drops as many as 4 enemies on you at once, often flanking you and requiring precise timing and careful enemy prioritization to survive encounters. Prince of Persia 2 is really good and offers a more expansive adventure than the first, but I prefer the more low-key, slower-paced action of the original. The sequel doesn't have quite as many ports as its predecessor, and this time the Super Nintendo version actually has some cut content. Best to stick with the DOS original, or the FM Towns version for the awesome music and voice acting.
昔々のペルシャ、国王サルタンには一人の娘がいた。その美しさは澄み切った夜空に輝く月のようでした。ある時王は戦のために国を離れることになった。
God, the FM Towns is like the most amazing way to play a lot of these old DOS games. It's so good. Jordan Mechner would return to the Prince of Persia franchise a couple more times. In 1999 with Prince of Persia 3D, and in 2003 for Prince of Persia The Sands of Time. I feel like anyone who loves that game and its sequels, which Mechner didn't have any involvement in, owes it to themselves to at least check out where the series started. And so we come to The Last Express. Later in 1993, after finishing work on Prince of Persia 2, Mechner started his own game studio, Smoking Car Productions, for the sole purpose of developing his next game. And luckily for anyone interested in his work, Mechner was, and by all accounts still is, a meticulous journaler and note-taker. His website has archives of his journal entries from the years when he was making Prince of Persia 2 and The Last Express, so there's a wealth of first-hand information to go off of. The Last Express had several inspirations. First and foremost was Mechner's experience of living in Paris for a year. He had moved there in 1992 while working on Prince of Persia's sequel. His European sojourn stirred an interest in the continent's history. Mechner chose the tumultuous year of 1914, just days before the outbreak of World War I, for the setting of The Last Express, because he felt the time period was underrepresented in video games. Still is. Another big inspiration was, of course, Myst and other FMV adventure games that followed it. But The Last Express wasn't just meant to be a grab at capitalizing on the genre's popularity and commercial success. Mechner felt it was the perfect vehicle to tell the kind of story he had always wanted to tell through video games. After Prince of Persia, Mechner enrolled in film school and directed a short documentary titled Waiting for Dark, which was filmed in Cuba, and even after poring through Jordan's journals from the time, I couldn't really find the exact topic of the documentary. But the point is, the man had honed his passion for film during the early 90s, so he was raring to bring that experience into his next game project. The Last Express takes place entirely aboard the Orient Express. Some of the team at Smoking Car Productions traveled to museums to research the famous train, but found that museum staff weren't too keen on letting a bunch of quote-unquote video game designers take photos or explore the inside of their displays. Eventually, though, they tracked down the blueprints for the original train cars. They even found a reconstructed dining car in Budapest, and the last remaining sleeping car, still in its original yet dilapidated state, just sitting in a train yard in Athens, Greece. They explored the insides, took dozens of photos, and scrutinized every detail. The woodworking, the handles on doors, the way the beds folded out and windows opened in passenger compartments, the fixtures in the bathrooms, the style of furniture in the smoking and dining cars. One interesting detail they got from actually being able to look at blueprints and explore a real-life car were the angles that made up the pathways passengers needed to take through the train. It would have been far simpler from an art and programming perspective to have players just move in a straight line through the train, but Mechner insisted on the angle changes for authenticity's sake. It seems like such a simple thing, and something I didn't really notice when playing through the game myself, but hearing Mechner talk about it in an interview and how important it was to retain that sense of realism, to document and maintain that piece of history, makes me appreciate its inclusion. The art design in The Last Express is firmly Art Nouveau, which was the dominant architectural and artistic style in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The ornate treatments, dynamic arrangements, and irregular shapes are all authentic to the time period, and really puts you back into that era. This Art Nouveau style was carried over to the character designs as well, which look like they've been ripped straight out of magazines and illustrated advertising of the time. By looking at Mechner's approach in Karateka and Prince of Persia, it's clear that he had an interest in portraying realistically proportioned and moving characters. All of the movements and cutscenes in The Last Express were filmed on a blue screen soundstage, and there's ample footage of this process. The shoot took 22 days. The actors were done up in colorful costumes and elaborate, darkly outlined makeup that the crew jokingly referred to as clown makeup, but this served a practical purpose. It made it easier to outline their features during the rotoscoping process. Smoking Car Productions patented their own tool for this, called Digital Cartoon Animation Process. The program itself was called GrabFace. It involved selecting specific frames from the 16mm footage, which would then be fed into the program. GrabFace would render them as black and white images, then as line drawings. The rendered frames were then colored in by hand by digital artists on the team. The complete game contains over 40,000 frames of animation. This is even with the decision to dissolve between frames, instead of having every cutscene play in full motion video. According to Mechner, there were many reasons this was done. Technical limitations and production costs were the biggest. The finished game already spans 3 CD-ROMs. Who knows how many it would have needed if they tried to do the entire game in full motion video. This approach also eliminated the need for reshoots and allowed the dialogue to be more natural and fluid. They didn't have to worry about lip syncing and getting every line right while they were shooting. In fact, the actors that played the characters for the film shoot were not the same actors that voiced the characters in the finished game. And we'll come back to this when we talk more about the sound design. Before that, let's look at how The Last Express actually plays. In an interview with Next Generation magazine a few months before the game's release, Jordan Mechner outlined his objectives for The Last Express. And I quote, "With a game like this, the goal is to create, to a certain degree, the illusion of interactivity. You want the player to feel that actions really have consequences. Choosing from multiple branches is not fun. You feel like you're on a branching tree just picking different ways to go. And that's not a game. You have to give players the feeling they really are somewhere, like on a train." So the goal of The Last Express was to create a story around the player, not a story exclusively driven by the player. We see the latter so much in game design nowadays. Every open world game has quest givers standing around in the same spots, dirty, stinking, dying of thirst and hunger, waiting for the player to come and interact with them. Or NPCs that are just set dressing, bodies to be jostled, driven through, or cut down as you see fit. Now, I'm not saying this kind of design is bad, but it's not the only way to do things. The Last Express takes a stripped-down, more focused approach to cast and setting to achieve its lofty ambitions. The game takes place entirely on the Orient Express, traveling from Paris to Constantinople in faux real time. Time moves about 6 times faster than real life. But that doesn't mean this is like an 11-hour game. Along the way, the player witnesses certain events and has interactions that push time forward at faster intervals. But when you're on your own, wandering the train, time moves at a set speed. The train runs on a strict schedule for arrivals and departures at stations. Certain passengers will depart at their designated stops. Others will change their plans depending on your actions. During the trip, each NPC has a fixed schedule that they follow, though if you eavesdrop on their conversations, there are moments that make it seem like they're moving around the train of their own volition. One passenger may get annoyed with another and go to a different location. Another may search for a bit of solitude to de-stress and enjoy a cigarette. Certain characters wish to be fashionably late for meals. Others arrive punctually when the conductors announce that the dining car is open. It's all pre-programmed, of course, but the fact that each NPC has reasons for what they're doing, even the most inconsequential of their actions, gives the whole thing a sense of spontaneity and randomness. Each character has their own life to lead, their own stories where they are the main character. I mean, some of the passengers on the train regard the player with nothing more than a side glance and have nothing to do with them for pretty much the entire trip. You can ignore all of this if you want, or you can pay attention to what they're doing, listen in on their conversations, and learn about these other digital lives that are only related to you, the player, because they happen to be traveling aboard the same train that you're currently on. I don't know, I just find this design fascinating, and it really immerses you into the game world. I'm often struck by games that really put you into their settings, where you feel like you can just hang out and live there. I feel like this is done most effectively when the world doesn't completely revolve around the player. But Robert Kath does have a story of his own in The Last Express. So, what about the main plot? As mentioned, events, actions, and conversations occur at set times and in set locations. If the player is in the right place at the right time, they experience them. If not, they don't. And that's all there is to it. But The Last Express gives plenty of different ways to learn plot-crucial information or uncover important events and items. There's never only one conversation or one character that you need to interact with to figure things out, which is part of the brilliance of its design. The NPCs won't wait for you to show up before discussing important details or clues for how to push the game forward. But there may be somebody else you can bump into, or another item or piece of information that will lead you down the same path. Now, there are choke points and certain things you absolutely need to do to move the game forward. There are many bad ends throughout the game too, choices that will lead to a game over, instances where you need to do something before your cover is blown, or timed events that need to be overcome. You can also just do dumb shit, like be a nuisance to other passengers by knocking on their doors and getting reprimanded by the conductor so many times that they just kick you off the train.
Trouble. I cannot be responsible. Monsieur, excuse me. These compartments belong to the gentleman in number 4. Don't do that, monsieur.
The police arrested one of the passengers, an American without a ticket. Apparently he was a fugitive, something to do with the Irish troubles.
Sophie was sorry to see him go.
Or doing things like trying to enter restricted areas like the locomotive section, or pulling the emergency stop lever in your room, or getting caught by police if they search the train. And that's if they search the train. We'll talk about that once we dive into the story. All of these actions lead to game overs, but nothing ever completely ends your playthrough. When you open the main menu, you'll see a clock, which can be checked at any time. This is also where you can save and load your game. If you hit a bad end, the clock will automatically wind back to a few minutes before whatever led to your game over, and you can try again. You can actually open up the menu and rewind time whenever you want. Now, all this talk about bad ends and missing events and conversations may be giving some of you anxiety if you're a completionist who's thinking about playing this, but I think it's part of the charm. Mostly, you'll just stumble into the big events of the game. That's just how it's designed. But if you really want to get all the nitty-gritty details and see every moment, you need to be a sneaky creep. Linger outside of people's rooms to listen in on their conversations. Jump out the window of your own room and shimmy along the side of the train to spy on people. Steal the passenger list from the conductor when he gets up to do his rounds. Break into other characters' rooms and rifle through their stuff when they're not around, and the conductor isn't looking.
Monsieur, excuse me. These compartments belong to the gentleman in number 4.
You can play the game like a total square and experience the bare minimum. Or you can give in to your inner criminal intentions and enjoy yourself. The choice is yours. By knowing the right actions and timing, you can experience the entire plot, as well as most of the side conversations and individual characters' stories. But that's for second and third playthroughs. In fact, there are a ton of interesting details you can uncover by following around specific characters on subsequent playthroughs. It's fun discovering all of these side moments and seeing how they foreshadow future events. As you're figuring out those right actions, many things will be missed. Just accept it and enjoy playing the role of Robert Cath, American doctor and stowaway on the Orient Express. And The Last Express really puts you in the role of Robert Cath. I think the way it does this so effectively is because Robert Cath is playing the role of Tyler Whitney. There's a constant tension because of the charade. You always feel like you're hiding in plain sight, and if someone does know your true identity, you wonder if you can really trust them with that information. The Last Express made me feel like a kid playing make-believe, trying to convince other people that I'm someone I'm not. There's this facetious glee that comes when someone calls you Mr. Whitney, and you just think, that's not me. It's great, I loved every minute of it. More gameplay mechanics. You have an inventory to hold items, but there aren't all that many collectibles throughout the game. Unlike many other adventure games, The Last Express is more about information gathering and figuring out where and when to be instead of item collection and puzzle solving in that sense. The game isn't completely without action though. At certain times, there are fight scenes. Your cursor will turn into an up or down arrow or a hand icon, and you'll need to watch your opponent and click at the correct time to dodge attacks, disarm them, or launch your own attack. These can be a bit frustrating at first, but luckily retrying them is instant in most cases. Some of the fights near the end require you to re-watch the cutscene leading up to them, but none are overly long. Once you figure out the timings, they're fairly easy to get through. On repeat playthroughs, I had absolutely no issues getting through them on my first tries. If you're really struggling though, the devs built in a bypass for them. When the fight starts, right-click to abort the fight and open the menu. Then click on the clock to restart the fight. Do this 5 times and the fight will be over and the game will advance. It's handy for those who are frustrated by these sequences. Onto the sound design, this is another area where The Last Express excels. The sound of the train chugging along on its tracks is ever present, and you'll know when it's pulling up to a station. The whistle blow, the squealing brakes, and the brief respite from the constant click-clack. For some reason, these moments really stuck with me. Even when I was in the midst of accomplishing some task or attempting to spy on a specific character, I'd never fail to take a moment to just think, oh, we've stopped. And then a short while later, the train would groan to life again and we'd be off. It's just another element that really puts you into this world. There's some music throughout, but it's mostly reserved for story moments and certain points where you're meant to feel like you really need to be moving to accomplish something. It's the very definition of background music, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. It's all very well composed, but a lot of it falls more on the atmospheric side of things. It fits the moments in the game where it's played perfectly, but it's not the kind of soundtrack that you're going to be listening to for enjoyment. Again, not a bad thing. It's serving its purpose, but not going beyond that. The voice acting, on the other hand, wow. These are some of the best performances I've ever heard in a video game. The devs cast native speakers for all of the characters, in an attempt to create the most authentic experience possible. And for certain conversations, characters will speak to each other in their native tongue.
Si les petites bourgeoises se mettent à écrire l'histoire, on n'est pas sorti d'affaire.
Voilà bien une réflexion de petite aristocrate.
Arrête.
With the help of subtitles, these conversations can be eavesdropped on, but only if Robert Kath, the character you're playing as, knows that language. So listening in on French, Russian, and German conversations is no problem. Serbian or Arabic, though, you're out of luck. Unless you speak those languages.
Forgive me, monsieur. Yes, monsieur.
Again, it's just another element that immerses you in the experience. The way sound and characters' voices travel is also handled dynamically throughout the game. Listening through a door or from another area of the train leaves the voices muffled. Sometimes characters speak under their breath or to themselves. Sometimes conversations will be overlapping.
Avez-vous fait votre choix?
Yes. I'll have the beef fillet.
Le filet de bœuf jardinière. Very good.
One unfortunate oversight is the lack of subtitles for the English dialogue. However, a user by the name of QWERTY0 on the GOG forums created a patch for the original release that adds English subtitles. All you need to do is download the file and replace it in the installation folder. They're not perfect, and there are some bugs that occur when multiple characters are speaking at the same time, but they're better than nothing. I have a link to the updated file in the description of this video. It's legit, I promise, even though the site looks like it's going to implode your computer. This patch only works with the original game, which is only available through GOG and playable through their DOSBox launcher. Or I guess it probably works if you have a copy of the original game too. As you can see, it was on sale when I captured this. It's normally pretty cheap and gets discounted often. So let's talk about the different releases of The Last Express that are available. In 2011, publisher .mu released a collector's edition of The Last Express on Windows. Along with updating the game to run on modern systems, it also includes a bunch of extras, such as a soundtrack, making of video, and strategy guide. This version was then released on GOG a few weeks later, and that's the version that's still available today if you want to play the original. Or at least as close to the original that you can get without hunting down a 1997 copy of the game. In 2012, .mu released a mobile version for iOS devices. An Android release arrived the following year. Also in 2013, The Last Express Gold Edition was released on Steam. This is pretty much a straight port of the mobile version and doesn't include the earlier Collector's Edition PC release. So if you're not a fan of mobile interfaces, you probably want to avoid this one. Though the Gold Edition does have several quality of life features, such as a hint system, unlockable character biographies, faster transitions, as well as achievements, if you're into that sort of thing. I bought and played through both versions for this video. Honestly, I prefer the original, but if you'd rather not deal with DOSBox and some INI file finagling to get the game to run in full screen, the Gold Edition is a solid option. But once again, be warned, the subtitle patch only works with the GOG release of the game. It doesn't work for the Gold Edition on Steam. Anyway, now that we've got all the top-down look at this game out of the way, let's dig into the details of the story. I'm just going to set up the beginnings of the plot here, and I'll throw in a spoiler warning later. So we return to Robert Kath, standing over his departed friend, Tyler Whitney, in compartment 1 of the Orient Express. We found ourselves in quite a pickle, and there are two ways out of this. We can unceremoniously dump our friend's body out the window, bit of an inelegant solution, or we can hide the body in the fold-out bed in our compartment. Both will present problems for us later on. There are also a few things that can happen if we don't make it to Tyler's compartment in time, or if we don't dispose of or hide the body. Either the conductor or one of the other passengers who knows Tyler will discover him dead. The train will make an emergency stop and we'll be arrested. Game over. Alternatively, we can make it to Tyler's compartment in time, but the conductor or another passenger could knock on the door. If we let them in, of course, we're boned. But we can talk through the door and tell them to go away. This only delays the inevitable though. So one way or another, we've got to get Tyler's body out of sight. For this playthrough, I chose to hide the body in the fold-out bed. Comfy. After handling the corpse, we have bloodstains on our jacket. Luckily, Tyler's is hanging nearby. It's a bit small, but it'll have to do. If we walk out of the compartment wearing our bloody jacket, we'll be caught and get a game over. So already, The Last Express is introducing us to its more real-world, logic-defined gameplay. As Kath, we've now adopted the role of Tyler Whitney, which comes easily enough since Kath and Whitney are the only Americans aboard the Orient Express during this trip. And though some of the passengers know of Tyler Whitney, not many have seen his face, so it's a role Kath can slip into with ease. We should thoroughly explore Whitney's compartment before walking around the train, though. There's a large, ornate chest with impressions inside for 2 items, one large and one small, both of which are missing. Inside his luggage is a telegram from Kath to Whitney, the response to the one you have on your person in the beginning of the game. There's also a scroll written in Russian. Kath can't read it, so we pocket it for later. As we proceed to the dining car, we encounter a young boy running around blowing a whistle he says he found.
François, viens ici. Arrête tout de suite.
That's not going to be annoying. In the smoking car, 2 young women, one British, the other French, gossip about some real-life current events. They speak of Madame Caillou, who became something of a national heroine when a few months earlier, in March of 1914, she shot and killed Gaston Clément, editor of the French newspaper Le Figaro. The trial for the murder began on July 20th, just a few days before the current date in-game. The trial's sordid details dominated French newspapers of the day, so much so that it overshadowed the July Crisis, an event that ultimately led to the beginning of World War I, though we'll dive into that a bit later. Anyway, the 2 women are gossiping about this, and you can stop and listen to their opinions on the matter. There's a newspaper on one of the seats nearby that you can pick up and read. This paper will be updated on each day of the trip, and the articles will change. I don't know if they're authentic articles from the specific dates, but they describe actual events happening around the world. This is a completely superfluous element that can be ignored, but just another detail that's meant to immerse you into the sense of time and place. Kath meets with August Schmidt in the dining car, under the pretense of being Tyler Whitney. You can actually head straight to the dining car and attempt to speak with Schmidt right after gaining control of Kath, but Schmidt will get suspicious, get up to check Tyler's room, and discover the dead body, which is a game over for us. On the correct path, Schmidt asks if Whitney has brought the gold, which Kath hesitantly plays along with.
Shall we get down to business? Have you brought the gold? First you kept me waiting, now you don't answer me. I have kept my half of the bargain. If something has gone wrong, I would like to know it.
Nothing has gone wrong.
I'm glad. I trust that you will not mind if I asked to see the gold.
I trust you won't mind either if I ask to see what I'm buying.
To see it? But you know that is impossible. The merchandise will be put on the train at Munich. It is what we agreed.
Good. Then we're even. Herr Schmidt, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again after Munich.
He has no idea what Tyler has gotten himself mixed up in, so we've got ourselves some investigating to do. Passing through the smoking car again, the ladies turn their attention to Kath and comment on his American demeanor.
Regarde ce beau jeune homme qui vient d'entrer.
Sophie.
Ne t'inquiète pas, il ne peut pas comprendre c'est un Américain. Si on ne le regarde pas, il ne saura jamais que c'est de lui qu'on parle.
Good Lord.
C'est impressionnant, hein, comme il a l'air de venir d'ailleurs. Pas du tout comme un Européen. Veste ouverte, adorablement négligée, les cheveux légèrement...
Pardon me.
They certainly could use a wash.
Écoute, si tu ne t'intéresses pas aux détails, tu ne vas jamais devenir une grande romancière. Regarde ses yeux bleus si tristes. Il pourrait être l'archétype d'un héros de roman.
It's funny that the French woman assumes Kath doesn't understand French. We'll see this more and more as the game progresses, and I mentioned it earlier, but most of the characters aboard the Express are not involved in the main story. They just happen to be there, living their own lives, and if you want, you can just ignore them, or you could pay close attention to them and discover several subplots that run parallel to the main action of the game, which probably makes this a good time to just go ahead and introduce the other passengers on the train. In the red car, the luxury class, compartment A is taken up by Vasily Alexandrovich Obolensky, a Russian count who was an advisor to Tsar Alexander III and Nicholas II. Now he's an old man in failing health, clearly still a supporter of the monarchy. He's traveling with his 16-year-old granddaughter, Tatiana, who occupies the next compartment. She's been at school in Paris and now accompanies her grandfather back to Russia. In compartment C is Claude Bauderel, a French geologist and engineer cleaner who works for the Anglo-Persian oil company. He'll be stuck with George Abbott, who gets on the train in Munich, though there's no record of him on the passenger log. Curious. Anyway, Abbott is a talkative British gent who seems to know a lot about the other passengers aboard. In the compartment next door is the rest of Bauderel's family. His 7-year-old son, Francois, the brat we saw blowing the whistle earlier, and Bauderel's wife, an uppity French society woman who doesn't get a name. The two ladies we saw earlier, Rebecca Norton and Sophie de Breathieu, sorry for butchering that French name, are staying in compartment E. Rebecca is keeping a diary during the trip, and by sneaking into their room when they're not around, you can read it. Rebecca will continue to add entries as the journey continues, so if you're interested, you can discover more about what's going on with them. Anna Wolf, a concert violinist and daughter of an Austro-Hungarian military commander, is in compartment F. She's roomed with her faithful companion, a Siberian husky named Max, whom she never travels without. Milos Jovanovic, a Serbian, and Vesna Savin, a Croatian who fled to Serbia, are staying in compartment G. In the next compartment are two Bosnian Serbs by the name of Ivo Buskopovic and Salko Popovoda. If you know anything about the outbreak of World War I, you may guess at these four characters' significance in this tale. If you don't know anything about the outbreak of World War I, don't worry, like I said earlier, we'll get into it. Compartment I, the last in the luxury car, is actually empty. It was meant to be filled by Jean Jaurès, a French anti-war socialist leader. But July 24th, the date our story begins, was also the date when Austria-Hungary handed Serbia an ultimatum following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sofia by Serbian terrorists. This event is usually pointed to as the inciting incident that led to the global conflict. Jaurès canceled his plans to travel to Vienna aboard the Orient Express and instead stayed in Paris to organize an emergency anti-war meeting that would take place in Brussels on July 29th. He'd be shot dead in Paris on July 31st by a fellow Frenchman who didn't agree with his anti-war sentiments, clearly. And the guy who shot him was named Raoul Villain. Villain. I mean, it's probably pronounced villain, but still. If you were writing this as a story and you named the assassin character Villain, you'd be a laughingstock. But this is real life. History is full of stuff like this, and it's fucking awesome. Anyway, a few days later, Germany would invade neutral Belgium, kicking off a cascade of events that would become the beginnings of World War I. Onto the green car, we already know the passengers in compartment 1. In compartment 2 is Alexei Dolnikov, the son of an aristocratic Russian family who has since left behind his loyalty to the monarchy and has joined the anarchist movement. He's a childhood friend of Tatiana's, and the two's ideologies clash frequently throughout the trip. Our friendly German industrialist August Schmidt is in compartment 3. Compartment 4 houses Mahmoud Makhta, a Persian eunuch. He's been charged with the safe transport of 4 women, referred to as the harem, from Paris to Cairo. His employer has given him the strict stipulation that the women not show themselves publicly. Fatima stays in compartment 5. She's the oldest member of the harem and the de facto leader of the group of women. Compartments 6, 7, and 8 are taken up by Yasmin, Hadija, and Alouan. You can catch glimpses of the women at various times and eavesdrop on conversations between them and Mahmoud, but you won't be able to understand them, unless of course you speak their language. Compartment 9 is empty, though it was meant to house Marshal Radomir Putnik, according to the passenger list, the Serbian General Chief of Staff. He ended up taking an earlier train. This is another character, like Jean Jaurès, who was an actual historical figure. The sleeping cars are capped off by Couder, conductor of the red car, who's just a few months away from retirement, and René Martens, conductor of the green car, a lazy Nepo baby whose uncle, Verger, is the trainmaster on the express. Lastly, there's a private car attached to the end of the train, and only going from Paris to Vienna. This is the Saturn, owned by Prince Kronos, a man of unknown origins who's rumored to hail from somewhere in North Africa. He travels with his personal assistant, Kahina, who's like a secretary and bodyguard rolled into one. You can also find the head waiter, Pascal, a chef, and a KitchenAid working around the dining car. And there are the engineers, who spend the entire game shoveling coal into the locomotive. And that's all of the passengers and crew aboard the Express. As mentioned, each of them have their own stories and subplots that can be uncovered if you're curious. For example, Rebecca and Sophie don't even pay much mind to Kath throughout the game. In fact, by reading the diary kept by Rebecca, who aspires to be a writer, she makes many astute observations about the other passengers on the train, but devotes only a sentence or two to Kath, describing him as thoroughly unremarkable. We've got some time to kill, so we can head back to the dining car to be seated at our own table. There we can eavesdrop on some other characters' conversations. Likewise, we can wander the train, or read the newspaper. Eventually, Martens will let us know that Prince Kronos has summoned us to his private car. We're led in by his stoically silent servant, Kahina. As we attempt to look around the lavish train car, Kronos appears.
What an unexpected pleasure, Mr. Robert Cath.
Usually people call me Tyler Whitney.
You should take care when choosing a name for yourself. Names have power. The most primitive cultures understood this, but of course it will be as you prefer.
Not everyone has the luxury of choosing his own name, Mr.
Kronos. Whether you are Cath or Whitney is a matter of indifference to me. I am prepared to continue the discussions begun by my agent in Paris, provided that you have the peace of which you spoke.
Is Kronos your first name or your last name?
I have no time to continue these delightful discussions of names. I have brought with me a rather heavy briefcase. I would like to know now if the proposed exchange interests you, and if you are capable of completing it.
Not just at the moment, but I have hopes of being able to do so.
In that case, we have nothing further to discuss. I myself must leave the train in Vienna. In case we do not see each other again, I wish you a pleasant journey to Istanbul, and continued success in evading the British and French authorities. Have a pleasant evening, Mr. Cath.
So it seems that Whitney has gotten himself mixed up in some sort of exchange of goods, and Kronos has seen right through Cath's disguise. Afterwards, we can wander the train, eavesdropping on conversations, or wait in our room. Either way, we'll end up confronting the Serbian Milos, who has some business with Tyler Whitney. He also knows Whitney's face, so he immediately recognizes that Cath is not him. A knife fight ensues, introducing us to the first action sequence in The Last Express. Cath disarms Milos, and the two have a more civil conversation.
As I was about to say, I didn't kill him.
Who are you?
My name is Robert Cath.
So you are Cath? Tyler spoke of you. He was afraid you were angry with him.
You shouldn't have worried. That was a long time ago. You better tell me what's going on. Tyler had a meeting with someone named August Schmidt. What was that about?
Where's the gold?
What gold? I saw a wooden box in a hell of a mess.
Then we are lost. How can I tell this to the general? Oh, I must tell to the others.
What general? What were you and Tyler mixed up in?
You must tell no one about this. No one.
Not even the train conductor?
You've been warned. Tsunaruka, the Black Hand.
Milos's ominous warning about the Black Hand refers to a secret group of Serbian military officers who were involved in several assassinations in the early 20th century, including that of Archduke Ferdinand and his wife. Their aim was unification of all Serbian nations, and their leader, the general Milos mentions, was Dragutin Dimitrijevic. Yeah, I know I'm butchering all of these European names. I butcher American names too, I don't discriminate. After Milos leaves, we need to hang around our compartment. The conductor is moving from room to room, making up the beds for the evening, and if you remember, we stuffed our friend's dead body into our own, so that's a bit of a problem. We need to stop the conductor before he enters our compartment.
Just a minute.
Yes, monsieur?
Don't bother making up the bed. I'll find it easier to sleep if you just leave it as it is.
Monsieur, you will be surprised at how comfortable our beds are. Many people who say they never sleep on trains find that...
I told you to leave it.
Of course, monsieur. It's as you wish. Have a pleasant night, monsieur.
At this point, we've arrived at Epernay, so it's about time we said goodbye to Tyler. The way Cath treats his friends, my god, I don't want to know how he treats his enemies. And for some reason, this time, handling the corpse doesn't bloody Cath's jacket. If, however, you chose to throw the body out the window after finding it, something else takes place while the train is stopped. First, if you're paying attention to the Bauderelles, you may overhear Francois mention seeing a man tumbling beside the train tracks. His mother pays no mind to this and scolds him for his overactive imagination. The body was found, though, and when the express arrives in Epernay, police board and search the train. If we're caught, it's game over. There are a few ways to avoid this. We can hang out the window of our own car, hide in the bathroom in the Count's room, or we can wait until this time to visit Kronos and watch the cutscene we saw earlier of their first meeting. After that ends, the police will be finishing up their search. Once that's finished, you won't have to worry about Tyler Whitney's corpse anymore. After all of that, we head to the restaurant car and witness an argument between the Russians.
Василий Александрович!
Дедушка.
Василий Александрович, меня зовут Алексей Дольников. Вы, кажется, знавали моего батюшку.
Да, знавал я одного Дольникова, Петра Николаевича. Хороший был человек, набожный. Сын у него был. Опозорил и отца, и всю семью свою. Пойдем, внученька. Устал я малость.
Василий Александрович, how many thousands have you condemned to prison and torture in the name of your piety? Или вы счет потеряли?
Well, I think you made a pretty good first impression.
Kath's such a smartass. I love him. A little while later, if we head to the spot in between cars, we meet Tatiana and ask her to translate the scroll we found in Whitney's luggage. She says she'll have the translation ready in the morning. You can also give her the scroll later on without seeing this scene, but this is a good time to do it because we can get a bit more background about the relationship between Tatiana, the Count, and Alexei. At this point, we can once again snoop around or eavesdrop on the other passengers. One thing to take note of, the concert violinist, Anna Wolf, seems to be warming up to our pal August Schmidt. Once the clock strikes 10 p.m., you have the opportunity to go to sleep. Just gotta make up these sheets since we had a bloody corpse stored in there earlier. Good as new. And yeah, Kath is just gonna sleep in the same spot he was hiding his friend's body. Wonderful. During the night, Kath awakens to a silent train. Exiting the compartment introduces us to some eerie music. When we try to walk to the other end of the car, we continue to be brought back to the spot in front of our own door. Re-entering, we find Tyler Whitney in bed, who sits upright like Dracula emerging from his coffin and pulls something out of his mouth.
Why don't you make it sing?
Well, there's certainly a lot of mystery afoot, so I think this is a pretty good time to break for spoilers. From this point on, I'm going to be talking about the entire story and going into the multiple ways it can play out. It's a really compelling and immersive narrative, and I don't want to rob anyone of the experience. So if you'd like to play The Last Express on your own, skip to this time to get my final thoughts about the game. If, on the other hand, you'd rather listen to me regale you with the plot details, then just continue watching. Since getting back to sleep doesn't seem likely after what we just experienced, we head out to explore the train and notice that Anna Wolf's light is on, so we ask her if we can enter. There, we're introduced to her guard dog Max and end up with a gun in our face.
Make yourself comfortable. I'm sorry the place is a mess.
Do you always carry a gun on your concert tours?
A woman traveling alone has to be careful.
I would have thought Max was enough protection.
You are not Tyler Whitney. Who are you?
My name is Robert Kath.
What do you want?
Tyler Whitney was a friend of mine.
What's that supposed to mean? Maxel, bleib hier. Sitz.
We follow Anna to the first car and find the Count having some sort of fit.
Let me through, I'm a doctor.
Слышите, как они поют? Таня, посмотри на его руки. Они покрыты
шерстью,
черной шерстью. Неужели ты не видишь?
Vasily!
What are you doing? What kind of a doctor are you?
Это я знаю. Ты за мною пришел, убийца. Таня, подай мне нож. Я вырежу его сердце и скормлю волкам.
Дедушка! Oh, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's saying.
Vasily Alexandrovich!
Who are you?
Set it down over there.
Mais pour l'amour du ciel, que signifient ces cris? C'est impossible de dormir dans un tel
Brew this in a
fracas.
tea and give him a cup every 4 hours. Can you do that?
Yes. What on earth is the matter?
Let's clear out. Let him sleep.
Vous avez entendu le docteur. Tout le monde dehors. Il faut le laisser se reposer.
Miss Tatiana, could I speak with you?
If we hang around outside the door, we overhear Anna asking Tatiana to watch over something for her. She runs to her room and a short while later runs back to Tatiana. After all of that excitement, it's time to get some sleep. The next morning, Kath keeps saying Milos to himself.
Milos. Milos.
So, I don't know, you think we should go talk to Milos?
Come in!
Milos, we need to talk.
Pazi, možda je naoružan.
August Schmidt thinks I'm Tyler. I went along with it to keep the game going. Now I want to know what the game is.
Nemoj ništa da mu govoriš.
Ma on je bre ženo Tylerov prijatelj.
Tebi je svako prijatelj.
Come on, sit down. Have you heard of unity or death?
Sure. That's Harvard's motto. Where is it, the post office?
Unity or death is a sacred vow. Crna ruka, we have all taken it. Tyler too.
He always liked that sort of thing.
He gave his life for this. Tyler came to us in the winter. We were hiding in the mountains of Bjelašnica, north of Sarajevo.
Šta se njega tiče gde je Bjelašnica?
A hoćeš ti mene žaska glava da pustiš da govorim? When Tyler came, we had no food, no guns, nothing. Tyler brought us guns.
What did Tyler want from August Schmidt?
Tyler was given a mission by the general himself. It was a great treasure that belonged to the Serbian people.
What was it?
It was called the Firebird. I never saw it. Tyler was to sell it for gold to buy the guns from the German. If the German finds out that we have lost the gold, everything is lost. You must tell him that we have the gold and that we want to buy the guns.
Why should I help you cheat August Schmidt?
Cheat him? How can you speak of cheating a German? The Germans are taking our land, the food from our children. We are like slaves in our own land. Tyler understood this. If you betray us, you betray the cause he died for.
It's your cause, not mine.
Da ga ubijem odmah.
Zabranjujem ti, on je bio Tylerov prijatelj.
Ti ćeš ga pustiti da izađe odavde? Ti si veća budala nego što sam mislila.
Oh, by the way, Herr Schmidt mentioned that he was having some merchandise put on the train at Munich. So long. Madame.
So Tyler had joined the Black Hand and was running guns for them. He was also given something by the commander of the Black Hand to exchange for gold so he could buy those weapons from August Schmidt. The object was a Firebird, according to Milos. Whatever it was, it's been stolen from the box in Whitney's compartment. In the dining car, Tatiana hands over her translation of the poem, and we can stay behind to listen in on her and Alexei's conversation if we want to. Remember that brat, Francois, running around the luxury car, blowing a whistle? We can get a closer look at it and determine that the shape of it looks oddly similar to one of the impressions in Whitney's box. Listening in on a few conversations with the family, we learn that Francois saw a beetle in the smoking car that he tried to catch but couldn't. If we sit in the smoking car, we'll find that beetle and can use our matchbox to catch it. Doing this will allow us to make a trade with the boy, the bug for the whistle. Later, we arrive in Munich, where Schmidt oversees a crate loaded onto the train, clearly the guns that Tyler was meant to exchange the gold for. Schmidt is getting tired of Whitney/Kath beating around the bush concerning payment, so we'll need to find a way to reassure Schmidt, otherwise he'll get off the train in Vienna and take his merchandise with him. Shortly after the train departs Munich, lunch is served, and we have the opportunity to dine with a newly boarded passenger, George Abbott. We quickly discover that he's a bit more capable than his bumbling, overly talkative manner would let on.
Mind if I join you?
No, by all means. I don't believe we've been introduced. George Abbott.
Tyler Whitney.
What foul weather. Can't seem to get out of this storm. It must be raining all across Europe. Quite remarkable, really. I understand you've made friends with the Obolenskis. You must introduce me. I'm fascinated by Russia. That was quite a scare you had last night. The chef de train told me you handled it quite well. You didn't happen to notice whether the other Russian fellow, what's his name, the young fellow, was hanging about?
I don't recall seeing him.
I'm afraid the old man has quite lost his head. Still, he has played a role for years as a sort of informal ambassador for the Tsar, if you know what I mean. I didn't know you were a doctor.
And you?
Oh, I'm travelling on business. Every now and then the company has a little matter to take care of on the continent, so off I go. Isn't she enchanting? That violinist, Miss Wolfe, she seems to be getting on rather well with Herr Schmidt. Not her type, I would have thought. Rather a surprise to see Herr Schmidt here. One would think he'd have his hands full back in Germany, what with his factories stepping up production and all that. Such an industrious people, the Germans. I wonder what business he has in the East. But you haven't told me a thing about yourself. Will you be going far?
All the way to Constantinople.
Oh, how lovely. Business or pleasure?
Actually, I'm traveling for my health.
Yes, so nice to get away from one's troubles, assuming one has any. New climates, new horizons and all that. Of course, I don't need to tell you that, you being a doctor. Quite a coincidence your being a doctor, and an American, I mean. When I boarded at Munich, the police were looking for an American doctor who'd got away from the police in Paris. Apparently he's mixed up with those Irish fanatics, Home Rule and all that, the ones that killed that policeman. Papers were full of it. Anyhow, it seems that this young doctor is in quite a bit of trouble.
Don't believe everything you read in the papers.
No, but I do. It's so much more fun that way. Still, it's none of my concern. I say, that jacket looks a bit short in the arms. Was it a French tailor who took it in for you?
I think I'll go check on the Oblinskis.
Yes, of course. Look forward to seeing you again. What a pleasant fellow.
Next, we head over to Kronos' car to discuss some matters with him.
Come in. Make yourself comfortable. Why, thank you, Kahina. I think I will.
Good morning, Mr. Ka. I hope you have good news for me today.
That depends. Do you still want the Firebird?
Do you have it?
What happened to Tyler?
The misadventures of Mr. Whitney and his colleagues are of no interest to me. Let us conclude this transaction quickly. We both have many other things to do. I with my collection, and you with your travels and special interests. Your treatment of Vasily Alexandrovich, for example. Datura stramonium. Very interesting.
It's very simple.
Simple to us, perhaps, but few European doctors would have thought of it. Once in Nigeria, but I digress. Do you have the Firebird?
Not technically.
Then I shall waste no more of your time. I shall look forward to our next meeting, Mr. Ka.
So it seems we're going to need to find the Firebird. Kronos is the buyer, and Whitney was then meant to use that gold to pay for Schmidt's weapons. But we don't know where the Firebird is, and we need that gold to show Schmidt so the uppity bastard doesn't get cold feet. We can stick around Kronos' car and listen in on a conversation between him and Kahina. So Kahina does speak. Kronos believes that Anna has the Firebird and tells Kahina he'll create a diversion in the form of a concert duet. Kronos will play piano and Anna Wolf will play her violin, giving Kahina ample time to search Miss Wolf's compartment for the Firebird. The only problem is Max. Seems Kahina has a fear of dogs, so Kronos also devises a plan to take care of that as well. This comes in the form of Miss Bauderel not being invited to the concert performance, which bruises her ego. In retaliation, she complains to the conductor about Anna's dog being in the passenger compartment. So Max is removed and put in a kennel in the baggage car of the train. While we're listening to Kronos explain this plot, we can read a book lying on a sofa titled The Sick Man of Europe, a memoir about the life of Abdul Hamid II, real-life Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, from 1876 to 1909. In the account, we read about how the Sultan visited Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and was given a jeweled Chinese egg as a gift. When the Sultan opened the egg, he saw a beautiful woman painted inside, who resembled one of his young concubines, Jasmine. Later that night, the Sultan decided to show Jasmine the egg, but when she opened it, she screamed and threw it away in horror. Enraged at her insolence, the Sultan drew his sword and cut her throat. The egg had landed on some soft pillows in his chamber and was undamaged. When he went over to inspect it, he saw that the once beautiful portrait was now that of a dead woman with her throat cut. The author of this memoir had discovered the secret of the egg. There were actually two portraits inside that reacted to light. During the day, one would see the beautiful woman. At night, they would see the dead one. The Sultan, however, believed the egg was cursed, an object that foretold disaster, and over time, the egg was lost. Turns out there may have been something to the Sultan's superstitions because the Ottoman Empire would fall several years after his rule in 1922. Anyway, an egg in Kath's dream, a bejeweled Chinese egg in this story, a Russian treasure fallen into the hands of Tyler Whitney. The plot thickens. A short time later, Kronos makes his appearance in the smoking car to invite Anna Wolf to duet with him. So if you happen to miss the conversation between Kronos and Kahina earlier, here's where you find out. And if you happen to miss this interaction, you'll be informed of your own invitation to the concert by conductor Martens. So there are many opportunities to learn about this concert and the fact that several passengers will be out of their compartments and distracted. So we've got a lot of breaking and entering to do during the 2-hour duration of the concert. Just before 3, Anna will leave to prepare. She asks the conductor to lock her room since Max is no longer there to guard it. So we need to wait for the conductor to either leave his post or just not be looking our way and duck into the compartment next door, which belongs to Rebecca and Sophie. They've also been invited to the concert. If we check on Rebecca's diary, we learn from the newest entries that the two of them are much more than just traveling companions. Though Rebecca worries that she's the one who's more interested in the relationship than Sophie. Exiting their window and shimmying along the outside of the train is the only way into Anna Wolf's room. There we can snoop around to find a master key for the train hidden in a secret compartment of her jewelry box. We can also find a letter in one of her drawers from the Austria-Hungarian government. She is one of their agents, and they know that August Schmidt has a client who is a Serbian general with ties to the Black Hand. Her job is to cozy up to Schmidt and get details about the transaction. This explains her interest in the German. With the master key in our possession, we can unlock anything on the train. If you remember, Anna had entrusted Tatiana with something important the night before, so we can sneak into the Count's compartment and have a look around while he's sleeping. In the bathroom, underneath the sink, is a jeweled egg. He awakens as we attempt to leave and says that maybe the egg will sing for us.
Ах, так это вы мне приснились. Не берите. Может быть, она у вас запоет.
You can also inspect the egg and discover the photo inside that fooled the Sultan in the story from Kronos' book. If you look at the egg at nighttime, you also see the portrait of the dead woman his concubine saw. Anyway, our hands are full, so we need a place to stash this bulky thing. The box in Tyler Whitney's compartment makes the most sense. It's conveniently shaped to hold the egg. As suspected, the whistle fits in there too. Now that we've managed all of that, we can head to Kronos' car to enjoy the concert. At one point, Kahina will leave for some time, obviously to attempt to find the egg in Anna Wolf's compartment. She returns empty-handed since the egg isn't there. Once she's back, we excuse ourselves from the concert. All of the criminal acts that I described pre-concert can be accomplished at this time as well. Since we've already done all of that though, the only things left to do are move the egg to a safer hiding spot and find the gold to satisfy August Schmidt. The egg can be hidden in Max's kennel in the baggage car. We just need to wait for the trainmaster to leave his post, which he does periodically to make rounds and announce station stops. We set the dog free and safely tuck the egg into a little alcove at the back of the space. Max will return to Anna's room like the good boy he is, but get taken back to the kennel shortly after. For the gold, Kronos mentioned a briefcase, so with our master key we unlock one of the doors between cars and hop onto the train roof. If we head all the way to the back of the train, we can kick in the window of Kronos' car and find a switch inside that opens a secret panel. Voila, a briefcase full of gold. While in Kronos' private car, we can read some of his letters to learn that he's in contact with some detectives, which is how he learned of Kath and Whitney's identity and connections. There's no way to leave the car the way we came in though, so the only thing we can do is walk right through the concert with briefcase in hand, which both Kahina and Kronos clearly notice, but have no way of interfering with, what with all of the other people in the room. It makes for a ridiculous scene. And yeah, there's really no other way to go about this, which is kinda weird, but also really funny. And I think that was the point. For now, we hide the briefcase under the bench in our compartment. If we check Schmidt's compartment, we can read a letter he's writing to the Baron, where Schmidt reveals his distrust of Whitney/Kath. It's another way of finding out that Schmidt plans to leave the train if you don't show him the gold before Vienna. At this point, there's not much to do until 5 p.m. when the concert ends, so you can spend your time spying on the passengers who weren't invited, or you can go watch the rest of the concert, which Kath must not find too interesting because he nods off several times. If you haven't found or hidden the egg, you'll also hear Whitney's voice telling him to make it sing.
Why don't you make it sing?
Your hint that you need to find and hide the thing. When the concert ends, we can show the briefcase full of gold to Schmidt when he returns to his compartment to give him his reassurance. However, Kath won't hand over the payment until they reach Belgrade, where the exchange of goods is meant to take place. Now, if you don't show Schmidt the briefcase, when the train arrives in Vienna, he'll angrily depart with his merchandise, and Kath will be killed by Milos and Vesna. So Schmidt really needs to see that gold. Shortly after leaving Schmidt's compartment, we'll be confronted by Kahina, who will escort us at gunpoint back to Kronos' private car. If we fail to return to Kronos in time, Kahina will kill us. Kronos takes back his briefcase full of gold. There's also an alternate ending that can happen right here. If you didn't hide the Firebird in the kennel, you'll return to your compartment and find it missing. Or, if you find the Firebird, you can just give it to Kronos. All of these actions will trigger this ending. When the train arrives in Vienna, Kronos and Kahina depart, and Kath is left with a briefcase full of gold for his trouble, since this was the promised amount for the exchange of the egg. Kronos is ruthless, but also a man of his word, apparently. Not a bad way to end things, but not what we're looking for. So anyway, hide the Firebird and return the briefcase to Kronos. Later, we speak to Milos again about who killed Tyler.
I want to know who you think killed him.
Sit down. Let's have a drink. I will tell you. When we left Paris, I feel there was something wrong with the Tyler. To me, he says nothing, but he was like a frightened man, always looking over his shoulder.
That's not like Tyler. I thought there was something wrong in his letter.
I tell you, he was afraid of something. There was a shadow on him. When I look into his eyes, they're the eyes of death.
There were marks on his face. 3 lines, like a knife.
It was none of my men. I love Tyler like he was my brother. If I find out who killed him, I will tear him apart with my own hands. Drink.
It's a little early in the day for that. I'll see you later, Milos. Why don't you come in? You'll be able to hear better.
Next, we go to check on the crate that was loaded on in Munich. There, we run into Anna. We have another fight sequence to survive. This time we're saved by Anna in the end. If we're too slow getting to the cargo hold, we'll find Anna dead, having been killed by Vesna before we could arrive. Upon inspection of the crate, we of course find the guns that are at the center of all of this. At Vienna, Anna exchanges information, and Kronos and Kahina depart the train, which means the private cars are no longer attached for the rest of the journey. It's strange that Kronos just leaves. He wanted the Firebird and knew it was on the train. There's no way that's the end of them, right? After the train departs, Kath drops in on Anna.
I was afraid you'd gotten off in Vienna.
In Vienna? Why should I?
I don't know, but I'm glad to see you.
The journey will be over soon enough.
So, what happens to August Schmidt now?
He will find the police waiting for him in Budapest. The guns will be discovered and confiscated.
I see. A job well done. You must be very proud of yourself.
You want to talk. Is smuggling guns your idea of an honorable profession?
Is that my profession?
It's like a game to you, taking sides. Today you help the Bosnians, tomorrow the English. Do you want to know why Tyler died? I'll tell you. For 1,000 years, people have been killing each other over the Balkans. It's not about to stop for one American. Our history is a chain of blood. It reaches deep into the past, it binds us, and it has nothing to do with you. Tyler is dead, you can't bring him back. Why don't you go home before the same thing happens to you?
Tyler was my friend. Maybe that word doesn't mean much to you. To me, when a friend asks for help, when you get there too late, you don't leave it at that.
Go away, please.
Later, we listen in on a conversation between Tatiana and Alexei. It seems Alexei has some kind of plan for this train, and if we search his compartment, we find a timetable for train stops with a handwritten note indicating 10:40 p.m. In his luggage is a device that looks like some kind of detonator. We can actually spy on him working on this device if we hung around outside of the train earlier. George Abbott will then drop in on us, saying that we've got the wrong compartment, to which Kath replies that they both seem to have the wrong compartment. If we chill in our own room for a while, eventually Tatiana will visit.
It's Alexei. He has asked me to get off the train at Budapest and run away with him.
What did you say?
What do you think I said? My grandfather's ill. How can I leave him? It would be wrong, wouldn't it?
Alexei is a romantic. You know what they say. A romantic is someone who spends his life looking for a good way to die.
When I told him no, he started saying wild things. He said I'm his only connection to the world, and that if I won't go with him, his life means nothing. You don't know him. I really think he might do something crazy. He wanted to kill my grandfather with a bomb. He would have blown up the train and killed dozens of innocent people.
A bomb? What kind of bomb?
He made it himself. He's been planning it for weeks. Of course I talked him out of it. But now I'm afraid I don't know what he will do. I love him so.
I'll see what I can do.
Alexei is currently in the smoking car, seemingly minding his own business. Doesn't look like anything funny is going on right now. After some time, Schmidt will order a bottle of scotch to celebrate what he thinks is a successful business transaction. He invites Kath to join him. Schmidt is also smitten over Anna Wolf, all according to plan. Schmidt's in such a good mood he decides to do a little dance.
You will be there too, Herr Whitney. And Kronos and the Oblenskis, we shall all be together in a big gold room, and she will play. And we will dance, 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 dance. Oh, Mutter, der Max, der Max, der Max hat Beine wie Max, wie Max, wie Max. La da 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 da, dum dum da da, la la la, dum 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 dum. Life is short, haven't you? Let's dance together.
Fun. Now that we're all tired out from dancing, it's time to get some sleep. During the night, we have another strange dream. This time, the train drives through some kind of mechanical tunnel to a castle on a cliff. Anna is there, and a knocking comes at the door. She disappears when Kath opens it, and we see that the dream overlaps with reality, as Alexei knocks on the door to the Count's compartment. It's not clear whether Alexei actually came here under ill pretenses, but either way, the Count pulls out a knife and stabs the young man in the back. Then the chest. Then the chest again. Tatiana's screams awaken Kath. We rush to compartment A and find Alexei dying, the Count praying, and Tatiana distraught.
Tatiana, take her away from here. The clock. Anarchy.
Out in the hallway, George Abbott attempts to have the conductor keep things under wraps. Abbott then invites Kath for a drink. Now, if we head to the smoking car right away, during our conversation with Abbott, the train will explode. Even if you found the detonator in Alexei's luggage earlier, Abbott will then mention something about the bomb, and the train will explode.
Speaking of which, you didn't happen to find the dynamite, did you?
Dynamite? What dynamite?
So we need to find that bomb. Alexei's last words were, "the clock." In the smoking room, the clock is missing. And if we loiter in the luxury car hallway, we'll hear the ticking of a clock that gets louder as we approach the end of the car. In the panel here is the bomb we're looking for. Remember that timetable we found in Alexei's compartment? The time written there was 10:40. It's 10:30, so we don't have much time to defuse the thing. Any wrong moves will lead to it exploding. It's kind of bullshit, because there aren't any hints on how to do this. It's just trial and error the whole way. Though redoing this section is pretty forgiving, because the game will put us right back in the hallway where the bomb is, so it's whatever, not too bad overall, I guess. So we need to first move the box housing the bomb out of the space, exposing its wires. Strike a match on the pipe and burn those wires. Then we can free the box and open it. Looks like we suddenly have an audience now too. We can't just open it from the front though. We need to unscrew the hinges on the back. There are a couple of interactive spots on the interior here, but touching any of them results in an explosion. So we need to take our telegram from Tyler and place it in between the contacts on the right side, successfully defusing the bomb.
I say, well done. Now how about that drink?
Well, that was a bit anticlimactic. Now, when we sit down with Abbott, we don't have to worry about the train exploding, and we can get down to business. He essentially offers us a job with British intelligence. We also learn a bit more about the incident that led Kath to be pursued by police in the lead up to the events of the game.
Oh yes, that awkward business with that Irish policeman. As a matter of fact, I've looked into that. You know, you really shouldn't have helped that fellow, even if he was wounded. Our police tend to take it rather to heart when a policeman is killed. But in this case, I think there may have been a bit of a misunderstanding. Guilt by association, if you see what I mean. Fact is, you're a doctor, Hippocratic oath and all that. I think we can clear this business up fairly easily, assuming we want to.
You mean assuming you want to?
This isn't the first time you've come to our attention, Mr. Cath. We never have known quite what to make of you. Some of us were of the opinion that you were rather a loose cannon, like your friend Mr. Whitney. Unfortunate what happened to him. Me, I've always felt that when push came to shove, you'd turn out to be one of our sort. What do you think?
I'm sorry, Abbott. I've never been much of a joiner.
Just remember, the offer is open. The world is changing and one does need to choose sides. And sometimes things change so fast that it's hard to tell one side from the other. But as I hate to say it, sometimes these situations do come down to a for us or against us sort of problem, if you see what I mean.
I'll remember that. Excuse me.
So we head off to bid Anna good night and more.
Something's wrong. We're not stopping.
But before we can get down to that, we realize that the train has been taken over by the Serbians.
اذهب أيها الملعون!
We find ourselves tied up in the baggage car. After rolling around on the floor for a bit, and yeah, that's really all we have to do to get out of our bindings, we're confronted by Ivo. After knocking him out, we go and rescue Anna, who isn't grateful at all for our help.
Take off your sash! You could have taken off the sash first.
Anna says we need to stop the train before it reaches the Serbian border. That way the terrorists will be arrested by the Austrian police, and the arms will be discovered, landing Schmidt in jail too, all according to plan.
You're being used. You and August Schmidt.
What do you mean?
Germany and Austria want war. All they need is an incident to set it off, like Sarajevo. Sarajevo wasn't enough, but crates of machine guns captured in the hands of Serbian terrorists. Now that could start a war. Anna, how do you think your superiors knew about the arms sale? Schmidt's been set up. Germany wanted this deal to happen, and they wanted it blown wide open. By you.
Helping the Austro-Hungarians isn't really our main concern, though. We need to gain control of the train, or we're going to wind up dead once it passes into Serbia. So we head up to the top, where we fight Salko. He's got a metal bar, which we can steal before knocking him off the train. We need to turn around quickly though, because Vesna climbs up with a sword. If we don't turn around in time, she'll get the jump on us and it's curtains. The fight with Vesna is a bit more complicated than the others. She can attack high or low, and we need to watch her movement, clicking up or down depending on what she's doing. After clocking her a couple times with the metal bar, she'll drop to the ground suddenly. We need to follow suit, otherwise we'll be smeared across an overpass. Afterwards, we'll be left hanging from the edge of the train, but we grab Vesna's leg and toss her over the side. We head to the end of the train and race through the cars, where we find everyone holed up in the smoking car. The trainmaster at first mistakes Kath for one of the hijackers, but Kath explains that the Serbians were the ones who did it, and they're all gone now. Well, all except for one, Milos, who's controlling the train.
Ladies, gentlemen, if you would all please move out of the dining car and return to the sleeping car.
Was ist hier los? I demand to be told what's happening.
Monsieur, please, it is for your own safety.
The conductor also tries to get the Count and Tatiana to move, but they're gone, man. So the only people not in the passenger cars now are the Obolenskis, Abbott, Anna, Milos, and the engineers. To ensure the other passengers' safety, and to make it so that Schmidt will get arrested on Austro-Hungarian soil, we disconnect the passenger cars from the rest of the train.
Now I see. You think you can hijack this train and get my merchandise without paying for it?
August, let me tell you something. Fräulein Wolf is a spy. Your friends back in Germany set you up to get caught smuggling arms.
Fräulein Wolf, a spy? And me, August Schmidt, betrayed? This cannot be. Tyler Whitney! We will meet again!
Oh, and there's one more thing. My name isn't Whitney. It's Kath. Robert Kath.
What?
My name is Robert Kath.
If we don't unhook the cars, we'll reach a bad end when we get to the front. Also, we need to make sure we have the whistle on us, and the egg is still hidden in the kennel. If for some reason they're in the box in Whitney's compartment, we'll also reach a bad end a little later on. With the cars unhooked and everything in its proper place, we need to get to the front of the train. There we confront Milos.
You won't make it. You're another Slav. This I understand. But how can you help the Austrians?
I'm not helping anybody. I got a ticket in my pocket to Constantinople and I'm not gonna waste it.
Is this a joke to you?
Who killed Tyler?
Tyler gave his life for our freedom. And you? What do you believe in? You believe in nothing?
This is one of the rare moments in the game where the frame-captured animation really lets down the intensity of the scene, which is a shame, but we get the gist. Anna tells the engineer to stop shoveling, and I don't know what happened to his buddy. There's only one of them here now, so I'm assuming he was killed by Milos or one of the other Serbs. Anyway, instead of pulling the brakes, we throw the lever to speed up the train. If we take too long or choose not to touch the lever, Anna will stop the train and we'll get another alternate ending. We end up a hero in this one, but it feels pretty hollow. So let's see this thing through to the end.
What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Stop the train!
As I was telling my friend before you shot him, I've got a ticket for Constantinople in my pocket and I intend to use it.
Constantinople. You won't make it out of Belgrade.
I wasn't planning to stop in Belgrade.
We are still within the Austrian Empire. In the name of the Emperor, I order you to stop the train. Do you think I won't shoot you?
Go ahead.
Now you've done it. Damn you! Give me that shovel.
Everything under control, I see. Well done. Maybe you couldn't have stopped the train before we hit the border crossing, but we can't have everything. That's a Serbian army train. By the look of it, I'd say it was General Djordjevic. He appears to be following us.
That train's on a different track.
Is it? I believe you're right. What on earth does he think he's doing?
Ej, oni su nas prebacili na stari kolos.
He says they've switched us onto the old track.
Mi moramo stati, stari most neće izdržati voz ove težine.
He says we have to stop. The bridge is old. It won't take our weight.
It'll have to.
Kath drops in on Anna, who congratulates him on his victory, though Kath feels like he hasn't won anything. He still doesn't know who killed Tyler, and concedes that Anna was right. He never should have gotten mixed up in all this. When she asks what he'll do when the train arrives in Constantinople, Kath says he's going on to Jerusalem. A man there has a manuscript that he wants to take a look at. This is the first time we hear about this meeting Kath has in Jerusalem, but it paints a much broader picture of his character. I wonder what his ultimate goals are, and what happened between him and Tyler in Cuba. Actually, I don't really want to know the answers to these questions. It leaves it to your imagination to fill in the blanks, which I think is more fun. Not much to do until the train reaches Constantinople, so Anna and Kath pick up where they left off before getting knocked out and tied up by terrorists, while Abbott sings a song.
I am the monarch of the sea, the ruler of the Queen's Navy, whose praise Great Britain loudly chants.
What the hell? Just before the final stop, Anna recognizes a ring Tyler has around his neck. This is never mentioned at all throughout the game, but before she steps out, Anna says she'll tell us where she's seen the crest on the ring when she gets back. Just more mysteries and depth to Kath's character. There isn't much train to explore anymore, so we head back to the smoking car and find Kahina and Kronos.
Ah, Mr. Kath. We have been waiting for you.
Where the hell did they come from? No, seriously, they got off the train in Vienna, and now we're only traveling with the baggage, restaurant, and smoking cars. So how did they get on board? Well, whatever, we're forced to get the Firebird from its hiding spot in the kennel. If we left the egg in the passenger car before we unhooked them, we're in trouble. When we return with the egg, Kronos tells us to open it. To do this, you'll need to have read Tatiana's translation of the Firebird poem. The outside is actually a world map, and pressing the countries in the right order, according to the poem, reveals a hole to place your finger through. And, yeah, okay, just do that then, I guess. This causes the Firebird to be revealed. It's an actual jeweled mechanical bird. After the Firebird appears, the sky outside grows dark, and the sound of a beating heart can be heard.
Look out the window. It's growing dark.
But what is it?
Don't you know? It is the beating of its living heart.
This may seem out of left field for a game that was so steeped in history and realism, but there have been hints of the supernatural creeping through the entire story. The Firebird is a cursed object, a mythical device, and its awakening harkens the end of the world. Kronos tells us to make it sing, so Anna plays the Russian tsardas on her violin, which causes the Firebird to move and sing out its own song.
Sunset.
Kronos then tells us to close the bird. If we take too long, we get shot. If we close it, Kronos takes the egg. He even gives Kath some information, to ask about the 13th tribe when he visits Jerusalem. However, nobody makes it off the train in time. It explodes as it arrives at Constantinople station. Alternatively, we can blow the whistle that accompanied the Firebird in Tyler's case. This causes the bird to go berserk and attack Kahina and Kronos.
No!
It scratches his face with its talons, and we finally learn who killed Tyler. He had the same claw marks on his face when we found his body in the beginning of the game, so he must have tampered with the Firebird on his own, the poor bastard. Kath and Anna jump from the train as it pulls into the station, and Max is there too. Alright. We then see how the train explodes. It was a distraught Tatiana.
Война должна закончиться.
The Firebird's shadow falls over a map of Europe during this scene, and we see it escape from the explosion.
Let's go. Take me away from here, now, please.
What are they saying? What's happening?
It's war! Avusturya ve Sırbistan harpte! Harp! War!
Then we learn that World War I is broken out across the continent. Anna says she needs to head back to Austria-Hungary, promising that she'll meet up with Kath again after the war.
I know a skipper who can take us to Gallipoli. We can get a boat there to Jerusalem.
Don't look at me like that. This war won't last longer than a month. I'll come to Constantinople as soon as it's over. I'll take the first Orient Express that runs after the war. If I don't see you, I hope you find what you're looking for. Take care of Max for me.
Of course, the war lasts much longer than a month, and we learn that this line of the Orient Express wouldn't run again until 1932, according to this afterword anyway. But I found that it started running again in 1918, right after the war ended. Maybe it wasn't this exact route, I don't really know. But anyway, that's the end. I really enjoyed this story in The Last Express, especially the supernatural elements that sort of weave through and then burst out front and center right at the end. World War I was such an all-encompassing event, and depicting the carnage that would ensue through the supernatural metaphor of the Firebird, paralleling the Firebird's unleashing with the beginning of the war, I don't know, something about that really works for me. It's also interesting that the Firebird turns out to be a mechanical contraption, as World War I was the first large-scale conflict to feature technology birthed from the Industrial Revolution. Machine guns and other automatic artillery, tanks, aircraft, slaughter and dehumanization on a scale the world had never seen before. But let's pull back from all of that. The Last Express is a tightly crafted thriller, with a likable cast of fully formed characters. Every piece of it is designed to place you firmly into its world, and if you let the game work its magic, it's a fantastic world to explore. Yeah, it can sometimes be tricky to figure out exactly what you're meant to be doing, but as I mentioned earlier, it's up to you to be sneaky, spy on people, converse with everyone, keep your eyes peeled, your ears open. The designers have put in plenty of signposts to point you in the right direction. You sometimes just have to uncover them for yourself. And the many ways of dealing with obstacles, witnessing events, and getting through the game to reach at least one of its endings makes for great replayability. And though it's stuffed with quirky characters and bombastic set pieces, some of the most memorable moments for me were the times in between major events. When you could just wander the train, take in its details, be enveloped in its atmosphere, speak to or listen in on other characters, piece together their lives, their beliefs, their goals, even if they didn't have anything to do with the main story. If I'm being honest, especially when they didn't have anything to do with the main story. I love games like this, the ones that make you feel like you just want to be there and hang out. And The Last Express nails that. There were a few times during my 4 playthroughs that I did for this video where I'd stay up and walk around the train late at night. All you can hear is the muffled sound of the tracks, the quiet snoring of the conductors asleep in their chairs. Aside from that, the hallways are empty, the smoking and dining cars deserted. Just these quiet moments where the game lets you exist. That feeling is what made those multiple playthroughs the most enjoyable. And it's the thing that leaves the biggest impression on me whenever I think about replaying that fateful journey from Paris to Constantinople again, just before the world changed forever. After finishing work on The Last Express, Smoking Car Productions almost immediately closed its doors. Its publisher, Broderbund, was bought by the Learning Company, who essentially gutted it, and the game went out of print and almost slipped into obscurity. Jordan Mechner, however, continued on. There were some plans to make a film adaptation of The Last Express, with Paul Verhoeven set to direct. Jordan Mechner wrote an original screenplay with a plot that was much more streamlined than the game, which you can actually read over on his website. The opening scenes are pretty neat because they flesh out the incident with the Irish policeman that led to Kath being on the run. The film ultimately was never made, which is unfortunate. I'm sure Verhoeven would have made an awesome adaptation of it. I wonder what kind of satirical elements he would have dropped in.
I'm doing my my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
A couple years later, Jordan Mechner would join Mindscape, a development studio working on Prince of Persia 3D, where he would act as creative consultant and co-writer for the game. Ultimately, he was unhappy with his experiences working there and with the finished product. And yeah, I don't blame him. Prince of Persia 3D is awful. When Ubisoft bought the Prince of Persia license in 2001, they had rights to re-release the back catalog, but to make a new game they needed Mechner's okay, since he still held the rights to the actual IP. It wasn't easy to sway him, especially after the sour experience of working on Prince of Persia 3D. Ubisoft showed off their concept work and some test footage though, which impressed Mechner, and he came aboard, becoming one of the designers and writers of the game. The Sands of Time released in 2003 to universal acclaim and relaunched the franchise. And yeah, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is an amazing game. It even led to the film adaptation Mechner was hoping for originally with The Last Express. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, released in 2010 with a story conceived by Mechner and a screenplay co-written by him. And I mean, it's alright, I'll stick to the games. Since then, Mechner has been involved in re-releases of some of his old games, like the aforementioned The Making of Karateka, and once again, go buy that right now, and working on graphic novels, writing several, and writing and illustrating a memoir based on his grandfather's immigration to the United States in the early 20th century, called Replay, Memoir of an Uprooted Family. Thanks to his penchant for chronicling all aspects of his creative process, his website is a treasure trove of insight into his design philosophy, and just what he was thinking personally while making these games that would go on to change the industry. And that's it for The Last Express. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with a friend, an enemy, a stranger on the street, whatever. I make these videos for myself first and foremost. I always just think, what would I want to watch on YouTube? But, I appreciate everyone who's along for the ride. If you really like what I do, you can join these people scrolling on screen and become a dungeon dweller, either by clicking the Patreon link in the description or hitting the join button on the video page for a YouTube membership. Everybody who supports gets their names in the videos, they get to watch new videos a few days before I make them public on YouTube, they get exclusive updates from me, and they get access to the Dungeon Dwellers archive, bonus videos that I make from time to time. Got another one planned for later this summer. It's fun stuff. If you support with $5 or more each month, you get your name read out loud at the end of videos like these Dungeon Architects. 2Password for Kids, An Owl, Antichrist Alex, Benefer94, Blake Golan, Biblio Jones, Chaos Arcanum, Dan, Daniel Hamilton, Danny Kilpatrick, Dan Persona, Darkest Abyss, David Carr, David Host, Dilatar Tepes, Dirt Possum, Dollar Store DJ, El Jaguar, Emmeline Payne, Ethem Kalash, Eugene, Fnar, Fuzzmosis, Garbage Person, Glenn Haven, Gloria Gordon, Half HP, Hibernia Scholar, High Food Court, Horace Rees, Hostile Eldritch, Industrial Illusion, Insidious Bliss, Izzy Lexus, Jack the Nipper, Jared Bynum, J Bud Airline, John B, Joshua Ayers, Justin Darnell, Kale, Captain Ketchup, Kenny Mitchell, Kevin Hanley, Kira Virgil, Krizik, Crunk Wizard, Kiowa, Lamont Atkinson Robertson, Mira, Magic Circuit, Max Grosshandler, Maxwell Valentine, Meownarchy, aka Roxy, Micah Power, Michael Stenberg, More Tags Gaming, Mr. Loser, Mr. Eater, Neck Out the Brave, Nick Wolf, Noise, Paul Fierce, Pazuzu, Prinny Dude, Rez, Richard Cutting, Richard Sanchez, Rog U, St. Murray, SC Fade, Shannon Gates, Shivering Dova, Sigma Simp 69, Silatixo, Somewhat Spooky, Superior Posterior, Sway Evenly, The Plath, The Stoic One, Toffee, SMT, Tucky Ducky, Tyranny Frigate, Vinci, Volt from Sea, Yoni42, Zach Diedrich, and Zethrin, as well as these dungeon connoisseurs. 84D93R, 8-Bit Unicorn, Akai Kiki, Alberto Amatucci, Alex Nidu, Alex Renko, Ambrowski, Andrew Tovaniti, Angin01, Anthony Labella, Aronai Saez, Arrested Rabbit, Ashley Black, Ava M. Dumas, B. Saunders, Burger Von Burger, Bewildering Avocado, BBF in Bloxburg, Blue Mantis, Bunzo, Keiichi, Captain Doctor, Captain Swing, Cassandra M., Cat Cathedral, Churm Slurm, Chumpkins, Claim, Claire Myers, Cloudy Wizard, Cohort, Concrete Mascara, Cormick, Crassus Zero, Crippler Jones, Chris LaFord L., Crooked Rook, Dale Walden, Daniel Todd, Apollo, Daphne, Dazed Clockwork, Dean Hubbard, Dikadiko, Doroko, Devil's Honey, Dr. Jellybean, Dragon Ace SG7, Drebo Bebop, Dry Kantbrot, Dungeon Chili, Dust Bunny, Eric Clapton, Fangro, Francine Bridge, Fremder, Gandalf the Gay, Glitterthroat, Hokon Boyum, Harvey Bodega, Heartman, I'm in Your Walls Drinking Soup, Icehammer 82, Indigo Happy, Irregular Rob, It's a Mia Mia, Nekokami, Jack in the Candle, Jack Brew 001, Official, Jacob Havlick, James Chambers, Jason Cook, J-Rob, Jeffrey Koenig, Gemma, Joan Valise, Joe Gother, Jolly Bean, Joshua Weber, King Bonkers, Error 1884, Cami Kang, Karen Rosenow, Nomadic, Critter, Lady Nagrum, Lampshader, Lemidgeton, Leonardo Shores de Souza, Liana, Lux Custodes, Macrophage, Man with Confetti, Masakishi, Matt Norad, Max Allison, Max Cohen, McEldritch, Meatman, Michael H. Prey, Michael Oliver, Mitty is a Bean, Minced Meat, Miss M, Mr. Independent, Monkey Kid 61, Mr. Al Packleton, Mumbles, Nagatochi, Nick L87, Old Dead Lemons, Olaf Albine, Parapug's #1 fan, Please Keep Making Videos, Poseidon 13, Raphael Labi, Rezo 55555, Rifflesby, Rodrigo Vespina, Cabral Silva, Roland, Sable, Sarkis, Scorpix 22, Sensei Wolfman, Shark King, Sean, Cilia Sotis, Cicerin, Skyclad Weeb, Solar, Sorbet, Spencer Newton, Sweaty Turtle, T, Talony Dew, Taylor Martin, the Corsair himself, the Mangled Pancreas, Thief of 16-bit Technology, Tor Dragon, True Axiom, Tuesday Twin, TV's Brent, Vange, Vexen Dagrin, Violet, Volkendo, Warrior Song, Wild and Horned Hermit, Zucker, Zills, Your Man in Japan, Zachary R. Kane, Zorik. What the fuck is this? Nate. That's what it says on Google Translate, so that's what I'm going with. Thank you all for your support, and thank you for watching. Next time, we're doing another Japanese-only game, so jumping back down that rabbit hole. Until then, The Last Express. Check it out. Dungeon Chill. Out.
It will be a wonderful evening. You will be there too, Herr Whitney. And Kronos and the Oblenskis, we shall all be together in a big gold room, and she will play. And we will dance. Dance, dance, dance. Oh, Mutter, der Max hat Beine wie Wachs, wie Wachs, wie Wachs. La da 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 da, dum dum da da, la la la, dum 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 dum. Life is short, haven't you? Let's dance together.